Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Levi with Mailbox Money here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And joining me today out of Arlington, Texas is Rich Ashton. Rich, thanks for joining us.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course, sir. I always like to leave a little bit of breathing room here at the beginning. Could you introduce yourself and let the people know who you are personally?
Sure, I'm an old guy. I started my career about 55 years ago, as a matter of fact, recently retired or the end of last year from active
Congratulations.
participation. Although I started in the real estate business with a large entrepreneurial company, I always knew that I wanted to be a small business owner. And so after some successes in the real estate business, I sold my interest back to my partners and went out into the world of small business. I did several different things, but in 1988, I bought a nearly bankrupt HVAC company, and I
Okay.
continue to own that company, which is now two companies. I continue to own that company today, although I'm not actively involved in the day-to-day. Um, I think what separates me and my journey is that along the way, I decided that if I was going to exit the business on my terms, which meant not selling to private equity, which would destroy the flavor of our company, then it was up to me to develop a leadership team capable of carrying on in my absence. I began doing that about 8 years ago. After some fits and starts, I kind of settled in on a way to communicate with my people. Most of them were blue collar folks who then we taught to become leaders. The beauty of the program is that they now run the company. We started with 8 people in that leadership program. There are 5 of them still there who are running the company on a day-to-day basis, and it's been real fun for me to sit back and watch their successes.
Was that always kind of an agenda of yours to be able to grow a company naturally and bring the people up? Uh, Basically, the higher within philosophy. Was that always something you were looking to do, or is that something that just kind of fell into place?
Yeah, I think it more fell into place as we rebuilt the company from its brush with bankruptcy. As we rebuilt it in the early '90s, we developed a real special culture, and it was a culture of empowerment for the employees. That enabled us to have a lot of long-term employees, and
Hmm.
uh, when people are loyal to me, I'm loyal to them. The idea that, I really didn't want to just cash a good sized check and leave them hanging and leave the customers hanging. That's when the roots of this program really started taking hold. And I just said, if there's a way to reward the employees through teaching them to become the people who are the shepherds of this company in the future, then I think I'd be silly not to try that. As I said, it was not an easy battle. It's not something that most people do, but it became terribly gratifying for me to be able to do that. And then watching their success now is just a great source of pride for me.
I gotta imagine a lot of them, are probably close friends slash almost like family to you if you've been growing with them for that long, right?
Yeah, they are, and they're special people, and I believe in them, and they're very appreciative of the opportunity.
Amazing. Well, Rich, I think we'd be remorse. What is the company that you are leading now? The name of it, and where did the name come from?
Well, I bought a 25-year-old company, and even though it was failing, the name was worth holding on to. The name of the company is Tom's Mechanical. We also
Okay.
have a separate parallel company called Tom's Commercial. So we do both commercial and residential HVAC, and then we've added a plumbing division several years ago as well. The company is based in Arlington, Texas. It's a local company. We don't go outside of our market area, but we focus on excellence. And we like to say that the reason we're in business is to provide exceptional customer service through the support and empowerment of our employees. And we don't talk about that empowerment of employees without practicing it on a daily basis. We start that message in the interview process, and then we repeat it, we practice it, we embody it every single day.
Yeah, and clearly it's working if you guys have been around that long. You there's lots of shops popping up here and there, and they don't have the right culture or mindset that they're not making it, right? It's a tough business to be in, correct?
Every business is a tough business to be in. I don't
That's the
know how
right
many
answer.
competitors I had locally when I bought the business, but I have a lot more now, and it seems like we add competitors daily. So our differentiator is just our commitment to excellence and commitment to employees.
Amazing. So back when you bought the company, how many employees would you say were at that time?
Interestingly, there were more employees there now than there are now, despite the fact we're
Really?
about 8 times the size that we were at that point. And that was just an indication. That's why they were near bankruptcy. I was from outside the industry. I mean, my background was in real estate and just general business. So I recognized the opportunity in the HVAC business, but I didn't know the metrics. And so,
Hmm.
I mean, I had to learn on the fly, and I was fighting the battle of keeping the company alive. I was also fighting, there was a banking collapse just shortly after I bought the company. And so I was fighting an economic difficulty along with just the self-inflicted wounds. And
Why not pile it on?
it was a really gut-wrenching time in my life. I went from thinking I was really, really smart to thinking I may be among the stupidest people on the face of the earth to have taken on that challenge.
What were some things that helped you through that difficult period of time get through it?
I often tell people the answer to that is clearly stubbornness and stupidity. I was so stubborn, and I was not going to let that thing fail. And bankruptcy was the logical thing to do, take the immediate pressure off, work it out within the court system. I was not raised to put a company through bankruptcy, and so I didn't do that. Looking back, that was the logical thing to do. But I just used my stubbornness to my advantage. I tested every bit of my leadership skills. I found out that tradespeople do not take advice from people outside the industry. I had to learn to
Yep.
communicate with an entirely different type of person. Not a bad person; they're great people, but they don't, just because Rich says it, and just because I can be motivational or inspirational, they didn't care. I was outside the industry, and they had to hear it from one of their own. I faced the same thing with the vendors. We owed money all over town. And as I went and visited with the vendors, they would appreciate the quality of the business plan that I had written up, but they didn't believe any of it. And particularly because I
Yep.
was outside the industry, it was almost, well, it was more than almost, it was a case of them wanting me to fail because I was from outside the industry. So it was just I mean, every day was a battle. Every day was a challenge. I went into it. I was 39 years old when I bought the company. I just assumed that I could, through sheer force of will, I could turn that thing around in 2 years. It took five, and it took an awful lot of hard work and good fortune during those 5 years to get it done.
Do you remember kind of the turning? Was there like a specific turning point in there, or was it something that gradually, like you said, those 5 years that when started accumulating then?
It was very gradual. And I was brought up to celebrate wins. That I mentioned that first company that I worked for in the real estate business. They were the ones who taught me the foundation for an employee empowered culture. And so I knew that to get the employees to buy in, I had to be able to speak to them differently, and I had to be able to get them pulling in the same direction that I was. I was introducing an entirely different type of culture into the business. They weren't used to that. They weren't used to being led. So we had too many people when I bought the company. So those who gravitated toward my message were the ones we kept and built on. But it was a daily struggle, and it was an opportunity for me to really tap into every single bit of leadership that I had learned along the way. And what worked today didn't necessarily work tomorrow. But it sure made me a better manager, better leader.
For those listening who have that entrepreneurial spirit, what's some tips and advice that you give them for if they are pursuing something that they're outside of the industry? You know, like you said yourself, not exactly knowing what going into it. What helped you get through that part?
Be careful of the advice that you receive from both inside and outside the industry. Entrepreneurs benefit from tremendous focus and tremendous passion. And when entrepreneurs are able to tap into or to find something that provides economic benefit and meets with their passion, they're in the right spot. And there are lots of people that will say, well, what if you do this? And maybe you should do this. In your gut, you know the right thing to do. And when you get diverted from that path, then you're wasting time and you're taking away from your core mission. It will not always work out. Entrepreneurs, are risk takers by nature. They're going to fail, not as often as they succeed usually, but failure is just a temporary stop. And if you're committed to that core and you know inside that you're doing the right thing, keep taking those steps forward. That's what I did. I knew that the message of excellence and employee empowerment, I knew it was right. And so I stayed with it. That's where the stubbornness came in. But I was on a call with a number of people giving advice to an entrepreneur who was kind of at a confused spot. And people kept suggesting, well, maybe if you did this and maybe if you did this, but if they listened to the guy had found his sweet spot and he matched his passion with an income producing opportunity. Everything else took him away from that. And my recommendation is, you know what you want to do. Focus on what you want to do and quit listening to everybody else.
That's a great piece of advice right there. That, yeah, a lot more people could cling on to that instead of all the noise coming around. Just focus on what you want to do and do it well, right?
Correct. And entrepreneurs are unique individuals. Not everybody is meant to be an entrepreneur, and not all business people are entrepreneurs. But for those people who are entrepreneurs, they possess a passion for what they're doing that is uncommon. And I think when you tap into that passion, I think you're halfway there.
Let's flip it to the other side of yeah, not someone who knows that entrepreneurship isn't for them, the employee that you're looking to grow and bring up. What's some qualities and qualities that you're looking for in a great employee?
Um, I think people can be natural leaders. I think you look in your organization for those people. I always compare it to a sports team. And if you go into the locker room of a sports team after a game, everybody knows who the stars are, but the stars are not necessarily the leaders of the team. The leaders, the natural leaders, are the ones who the other employees gather around, or the other players gather around and talk to, and they look to them for advice, and they just hang out with them. Those are your natural leaders, and every organization has them. So, in our business, I look for the technicians who have the other technicians gather around them. Whether they carry the title of a leader, they're the ones who are influential. And so if I have an idea as the leader, I'd better involve those unofficial leaders. I better run that idea by them before I impose an idea that makes sense to me but doesn't make sense to them. They will become, number one, a great sounding board. Number two, they'll be my biggest advocate when we roll out that idea because it was presented to them. They had a hand in it. They believed in it. We are in this leadership program. We started with the idea that every one of you has something or several things which are holding you back from being a better leader. And let's identify what those are. Maybe it's emotional baggage from the way you were raised, and you kind of feel like nobody really likes you or will follow you. Maybe it's that you were always focused on being a great technician, but you never really thought about leadership. Maybe that's your ceiling. Well, whatever the ceiling is, we can work to lift that ceiling and help you get through that ceiling. And then we'll find another ceiling and we'll help you with that. As long as the employees are game to go through that, and some of it's gut wrenching, particularly if you're dealing with emotional baggage, as long as they're willing and you're willing, pouring resources into those employees who are interested in actually becoming something different, it's a tremendous experience.
Let's kind of fast forward to today. What does your day to day look like now, and what are some of the goals that you got coming up here, Rich?
Well, I wrote a book in connection with this leadership program. I was an accidental author. I wrote blogs to the leadership team about different concepts and ultimately published those blogs in book form. And now in my retirement, I am doing some speaking. I'm doing some training and all around the concepts that are in the book. And so I have a very full life in retirement or semi-retirement. I still meet with the president of the company once a week, off-site, just to make sure that I'm in touch with what's going on. And there are still some things that I know that he doesn't know that we work on together, which is great. It keeps me involved, but it keeps me out of his hair too. So most of my time is spent on marketing my fledgling speaking career.
Very nice. If you don't mind, where could people find that book?
Oh, I don't mind at all. The website is growingyourown.net. I can be reached directly by email, rich@growingyourown.net. I love having those conversations with people. It doesn't cost any money to have a conversation with me. And then I'm on
Amazing.
LinkedIn primarily. I don't do much social media, but I'm a regular on LinkedIn. So if somebody wanted to check me out on LinkedIn, I'm a regular poster there. I would love it.
That's about the only social media that I like checking out nowadays is LinkedIn. Feels like everything else is just kind of going back to that noise and garbage around. LinkedIn actually, I find, has a lot of great people on it looking to give a lot of, like you mentioned before, free great advice as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I stay there. I've kind of experimented with the others and they just don't make sense to me from a business standpoint.
Rich, you mentioned now you're kind of in a more passive role and everything. Is that something that you wish would have about sooner? Do you think it hit at the right time? And what's your experience with being passive in a more passive role now?
That's a really good question, and the answer is different for everybody. For me, the timing was perfect. In 2025, I turned to my wife early in the year one morning and I said, if I didn't have to go in today, I wouldn't go in. And she said, in 44 years of marriage, you have never made that comment before. And I said, it's time. And at that point, I had turned over daily management of the company to the team, but I was still in the building. And it was at that time I said, okay, my retirement date is December 31st, 2025. I'll be here until then. I'll be in town. I'll be available, but I won't be in the building. And the timing was absolutely perfect. When I meet with the president every Monday morning, I always leave those meetings going, I'm glad he's doing it and I'm not, but I appreciate what I can still give to the organization and what they still need from me. It's an absolutely perfect existence for me right now in retirement.
That's awesome to hear. Well, Rich, we appreciate your time today, sharing your insights and growing a company from the edge of bankruptcy to a successful one that you're still a part of, but taking a more passive role. It is amazing to see the full picture of the entrepreneurial spirit.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed the conversation. It wasn't very long, but it was good. You gave me an opportunity to say what I wanted to say, and I really appreciate that. So I hope your audience gained some benefit from it.
Absolutely. Rich, if you one more time, if you could tell people the name of your book and then places that they can find you and find the book, that would be much appreciated, sir.
Sure. The website is growingyourown.net. You can get to Amazon through the website, or you can go direct to Amazon and look up the book, Growing Your Own. I'm on LinkedIn under Rich Ashton. And if you want to contact me directly, rich@growingyourown.net is the most efficient way to do that. And I don't consider that an imposition. I consider that an opportunity.
That's amazing. Well, thanks again, Rich. You brought a lot of good value to our guests. I think they're really going to get a lot out of this one. So thank you again. And thank you everyone for listening. We'll catch you guys on the next one.